when it comes to multilingual learners is that they don't need to be fixed, that they don't need to be saved, that they are not some pitiful human being who somehow is a walking deficit. I've worked across different school districts and public charter, and oftentimes those students are kind of placed in this I am broken box, or I have something wrong with me box. And I think not just multilingual learners, but a lot of our more needier communities. And I think a part of the process and what I would hope educators and folks who are stakeholders kind of consider is that we are not the ones to go saving people. We are the ones that are supposed to elevate what's already there. We're supposed to cultivate the strengths of what these young people have. And I think when you do that and you focus on the humanity of a person, I will get away from even students, people. I think you tap into something that's greater, that creates growth, that creates a desire for better, that creates a desire for self, a desire for others, like empathy, instead of what I think sometimes happens where if we put them in that box, apathy. Like if you are designated as someone who is broken from the get-go, and your whole life you're being told that you're less. But I'm gonna help you learn English though. That's the wrong framing. So those would be the two things I think folks that are in the work, that are doing the work, consider. That we're not there to save and fix anybody, and that it's all of us. It's not just some of us. It's not just one department. It's not just one person at a school. It is every single person that walks in that door that commits to teaching these young people, not just about education, but about themselves. And I think that's how you make that change. Start. I'm not gonna say that's what makes a change, but you start positive movement.
I think oftentimes there are people who think that as an immigrant student or not knowing English as a first language, that they're not intelligent. But I think that students who know another language on top of, learning English at the same time offers more to the table. I think that association is wrong. And I think that kind of giving them that ownership that, you have talent, that you are able to do this, you have courage that you're able to do this. I think the reframing of it is so important, especially for their self-esteem. I've had a lot of students who think that they're not intelligent at all just because of that fact of that they're not good at speaking English, but that doesn't mean you're not proficient in your own language. That doesn't mean you're not intelligent in your own language, or what really does it mean to be intelligent, that we shouldn't judge our immigrant students in any way, and that we should just offer them a platform and space and just safety to exist and coexist in the same space and not treat them any differently in how we teach them, or rather just offer more support in the sense that they feel safe and included and not singled out for being an immigrant.
And the strengths of these students, having had the privilege of teaching them for over 20 years, is that they have all of that hunger, ambition, hopefulness, passion that make young people amazing to work with. But they often have experiences of their own and legacies from their families of having, crossed borders, of having traveled, of having had to live within multiple cultural frames of reference. And that means that they have had to oftentimes navigate and negotiate multiple worlds of language and media and experiences and policies and institutions and systems. And what that often means is that there is a kind of deep resilience in them and a resourcefulness that sometimes our schools and our institutions can overlook. But that makes them hopeful, I think, beyond sort of the grit ideas that we carry around in American society, to a very deep and true recognition of what's truly important. I think those are legacies that their families, who often, made sacrifices to make better lives, as they always talk about for them and their future generations. That's an inheritance that they carry with them and bring into their schooling every day. And so it inspires me, it re-inspires me. It means that ways that our school system kind of push and press and demand of them. They meet with totally understandable responses, and often those responses are, no matter how much is said against me, I'm going to keep continuing to rise above, and that's utterly remarkable. And it is, as a teacher, I think the most powerful force that we get to work with is the hope, the sense of possibility, the drive, the motivation of our youth. And so it's a great place to be as a teacher.
I think the one thing that I think all educators and support staff and administrators and anybody just working in the field of education to know is that we are all like literacy teachers. Like, we all have an opportunity every day. A student walks in to our classrooms, walks into our offices, every student that we walk by in a hallway, to model language and to model all types of language, whether it's academic, whether it's informal, formal. Like, we all have an opportunity to give these young people the opportunity to showcase their talents, to practice.
The strengths that the juniors and seniors all had, and that I was able to witness, I think was one of perspective. So the research topic that we chose was one where we thought the research and the learning could be close to them in terms of speak to an experience that they have, but also be one in which maybe greater perspective taking.
There's been times when I've looked back at them and I just put myself in my students' shoes, and I wonder about ways that even if my intention was to be empowering in some sense, I wonder if I'm re-traumatizing my students sometimes in the ways that I have them bring those stories into the classroom. I can remember times when I had students write narratives about their journeys. I would write some about my own experiences that I had of discrimination or whatever, and I wanted my classroom to be a safe space, to tell those stories. I tried to make it so. And students would sometimes say it was so, but I realized that I wasn't always creating a space where they would be able to say, like, actually, I don't want to tell this story, or reliving it in this way and in this context isn't the safe. It isn't part of healing and transformation. And so I've been circumspect about that. But I also, I think the way I think about what we did in our classroom, our learning zones, very influenced by like how Paulo Freire framed literacy, reading the word and the world. And so I think about, so we thought about our migration unit as something that's very live in the political and social atmosphere of where we live in our times. It's things that kids talk about every day. And so we didn't open with sort of like, what was your journey, or what was your trauma, or what was your like history, painful or joyful, or all of it. We just took on migration as a topic that we know, they know about, they care about, and is live in the world. And we committed ourselves to reading different voices and trying to synthesize different perspectives. And so for some of our students, as they read narratives about, say, again, Javier Zamora, or the twins and the faraway brothers coming from El Salvador to the US, some of our students have parallel experiences themselves of that journey of the desert, of detention. And they do and they can bring their experiences to play, but they don't have to. One group in particular, and I won't name names and get into specifics, but one group was reading a book where I knew that two of the students had those exact experiences, and the two of them talking about those experiences allowed them to connect with each other and with the book in such a profound and powerful way. And at the same time, there was another student in that group who I was lucky enough to teach them when they first arrived in the US, and I knew that they had the same experiences, but they didn't want to talk about it. Like, they weren't talking about it. Mm-hmm. And so just to not only recognize that students may have different relationships to their own histories and pasts, but yet to assume that they have interest, knowledge, right? Tons of perspectives, tons of background knowledge that they could bring to bear on the issue while continuing to kind of expand their knowledge through our research. That's kind of assumption that we built the learning on, and really try to treat them as thinkers and researchers and people who had something to say to the world that the world needed to hear.
I develop a multicultural competence in my students by just kind of going out of my way to find stories that I think would, that I think they would relate to. I think it's important to find stories where they can find their own identity in this kind of story and kind of relate to it. I'm sure that as young adults their age, they can already formulate some kind of hardship they've been through in their life. And especially as, immigrant students, I'm sure there's probably so many things they've encountered that maybe a student who's not an immigrant has. And I think by showing them that across all cultures, there are so many experiences that they're not alone in, it might be some sort of a connection that they can form with it and give them enough agency to want to write their own story, empower them to write their own story in the same way.
Translanguaging is understanding that it's not that we have sort of an English language system and another language system, that our understanding of language acquisition has evolved to understand that those systems intersect and interact. And, rather than thinking that building somebody's home language interferes with their English development or English language or literacy development, it actually all sort of builds on each other. And so I think about it as a pedagogical approach, but honestly, the pedagogical approach hinges more on the lenses of how I see students. Because I think if you think about translanguaging, not from the way that teachers have traditionally thought about the presence of other languages besides English in American schools, but to think about it as this incredible strength, this incredible asset, this is superpower that students have, that they have been navigating multiple languages and dialects through their whole lives. And that they naturally do that. And so rather than our classrooms being built to sort of squeeze that out of them, to diminish them, but to recognize that it's an asset and to figure out how to sort of responsively build on that strength, then you enable the superpower to do a lot of good.
We often have a shared stance that what we want to do, what we want to set out to do is offer access, right? That language can be, and then often the phrase language barriers, right? And so by teaching English, we are offering greater access to content and to learning and removing barriers. But something I've come to reflect on in my own is even within the space of English language classes, how whether explicitly or implicitly, holding the expectations that students will only be communicating in English in the class, or this is their designated space to develop their literacy and communication skills in English. That in a way is also maybe creating a barrier or a lack of access to all of the linguistic repertoire, right, that a student brings with them into the room. And quite literally seeing students who are bridging, between languages, having a hard time navigating the space because of some feeling that they could not use their home language or it had to be in secret, or if they were lucky enough, honestly, to have maybe somebody who they can communicate in their home language and could help them navigate the room. So in observing that and sitting uncomfortably in that, in what I was seeing, and then learning about translanguaging, this bigger concept, I thought, really, I myself am bilingual. I learned Spanish first, actually, and went through school that did not have ELD. And so what we naturally, I think, just like water flows, would use any way we can express ourselves to build ideas. And if the work is robust enough and rigorous enough, you would need all of the ways that you can express yourself, both linguistically and, it's in writing, it's in speaking, it's in visualization, all of it. You have to leverage all of that in order to be able to engage in rigorous work.
I see students enjoying reading, and and I walked up to almost every table, and I asked, "What are you reading?" And they were able to tell me, and what they were reading about at that time, and what the activity that they were doing at that table at that time, and how it connected. If they were able to talk us through, myself and parents, talk us through the activity. I saw independent work, and I saw some guided instruction. And then I saw kids where you might have thought, some people thought that they were just like catting off, but no, they were actually learning in a way that's comfortable for them. They might have been throwing a little eraser at each other, but they were actually talking about the text. Some of the teacher moves that I saw, I went over to a group, and one of the teachers, Miss Cora, I don't know if I can say her name, but she was leading and they were looking at a question, and I can't remember what it was. Something about how do these two experiences intersect. And so she had the word intersect up there, but she also had an X with a dot. And when she said the word intersect, she pointed to the dot. And I went home telling a whole bunch of people about that, because it was such a small move, but that makes a huge difference, not just for language learners, but for anyone who is trying to figure out what these academic words are. And so I saw that. Normally, sometimes when you go into classrooms, students they're like, I hope she doesn't come talk to me. Please don't come talk to me. Please don't say anything to me. Oh gosh, it's fine. It's good. No, like, you're not seeing that. You're seeing kids expressing what it's like to be in the class, what they're learning about the book, able to pull out text and say, oh, I pulled this quote out because this is what this means. And so it's great to see the differences in teaching and instruction, and not just teacher up here, class looking up here, and a call and response, but actual like learning from each other in this protected space.
My experience in this class is good. Like the fact that we have different stations helps me understand the book way more than just reading it and taking notes. Like each station is like helping me understand and like focus more on like to find the main idea of the chapter or like the book also. And like having people in my group also helps because I get more opinions. Like if there's something that I missed during the book and they bring it up, it helps me realize that I missed that. So now I have that information. Like we look for a quote and we share like the quote, and then we all give opinions of what we think it means. And then at the end, I say like whatever quote I said, I say what I think it means, and then they say quotes, and then like their point of view of the quote makes me understand a little bit more what they're viewing the book as. This class is different because we have stations. Like if we understand the work better, and the teachers are always helping us, like reassuring us on how to do the work, or like always checking up if we need help, or like even if we don't ask for help, to explain to us how to do it. Well, I like to speak Spanish more, so and I understand Spanish better. So sometimes I like to the book that I'm reading right now. Sometimes I like to search it up in Spanish so I could understand more. Like I understand English, but Spanish it makes more sense. And then I do be switching up. Like, and my book also has like certain words that are in Spanish or certain phrases. So it's like good for like the both bilingual.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And do you find it helpful to be able to using both languages helps you understand better?
Yeah, having both language helps me understand better.
There is an important moment in my learning in my zone, because if one of us is maybe stuck, we help each other out as a team, not as an individual. We help as a team or as a group.
Yeah.
Basically, just reading out loud to everyone else. We just finding a quote, a paragraph, a sentence in the book, and show the other people that that's why I'm choosing this one. But other zone is also fun too. I think it's more thought provoking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like every other class also thought provoking too. But like this one is like you're looking at a page and you start thinking. You never stop thinking, and you explore, experiment, and there's no right answer. There's just answer.
I think it's great actually. It's unique because like other classes was like regular being like take notes or do lecture and do assignment and homework for the day. I like is zone number 7. It's called the big screen. So you put everything what you know about the what you're learning so far from the book and putting what you know everything in the whiteboard. I think what I like about this book that I'm reading is like about making arguments because like I want to see how other people think about this side and that side, like having different perspectives, and I want to explore them.
The thing is special about this class is that the teachers are locked in, like they always are, and talk about the what's called the class, not out of class. Like like they never do something to give us like free time and stuff. They always locked in class. Yeah, and I like that. I speak Persian. The accent is Dari.
Okay. Is there ever a time that you go back and forth between Persian and English? Do you ever go, speak other languages in this classroom with your other students?
Yeah, sometimes I speak Persian, but when I see people like they act weird, like what are they saying? I speak English too. Like whenever I see something, I translate it to English. I was gonna say that respect elders, no matter. Also respect younger than you and elders, no matter who, and then yeah, do whatever you want and follow your goals.
I never had like 2 teachers at the same in the same class. No, I just love this class. It's good.
You love this.
It's enjoyable. Yeah.